Hey, 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 welcome to True House Stories. I'm Lenny Fontana coming out of NYC. And today we set our camera and our viewpoint right to the East Coast, a big part of dance music. We always talk about the UK, we talk about, Ibiza, but we want to dig deep into the roots of the 80s, 90s, and what went on in dance music. And wonderfully enough, this gentleman agreed to come on, who has produced and wrote for likes of Celine Dion, J-Lo, Shavani, Keisha Jenkins. The list goes on and on. Celine Dion. I don't know if I said Celine Dion. Let's say it again. Celine Dion. It's got platinum records. Label executive. He's an engineer in the sense of touching the actual mixing console, but he's also an architect in the Jersey dance scene. And wonderfully enough, we don't get to hear from these unsung heroes that often. But today you're going to. And Shedrick Guy is our guest from the Jersey house scene. And he's coming here to lay it out for us. So I'd like to welcome to True House Stories, the one and only, the legendary Shedrick Guy.
Hey, Lenny, how you doing, bro?
Thank you, my man. Thank you, and thank you for agreeing to come on the show. Welcome.
No problem.
Welcome. First of all, before I get started, how are you doing? Everything cool?
Yeah, everything's good, man. New year, new ventures, new music, the whole nine.
How many years is it now that you've been in the game? You say? I know it's decades. It's decades. Long time.
I started, before high school. I started in the late 70s.
Okay.
As a musician, playing bass, behind people. Like the other day, the Luther Vandross documentary was on. And I remember at 17 years old going in the studio, because at the time this guy took me in the studio and he put a chart in front of me, because I could read music. He put a chart in front of me. He said, play this. And I saw this name. It said Luther Vandross, written by Luther Vandross. I was like, okay, that's a cool name, right? Then years later, Change comes out with Searching. I was like, wait a minute, isn't that the same Luther Vandross?
Luther, right.
Yeah, I said, that's the same guy. That I, play bass on on a song you've written. And, and that was that. So I've been doing it for a long time.
All right. Well, now that people understand that, so let me get right to that question, because this is what makes this show special. We always like to go back in time, so we're going to ask it in a very proper way. You as a young kid, how does music find you?
Through my grandmother. My grandmother in Georgia, Southwest Georgia, she was the piano player for all the churches. And when I was like, how old was I? Like maybe 11 years old, she would play, the piano that she practiced on was in the room that I slept in when I went down south and everything. So I asked Grandma, I said, Grandma, show me how to play something. And the first song she showed me how to play on piano was Going Up to Yonder by Edwin Hawkins and stuff like that. She showed me how to play it and everything. And since then, I fell in love with music.
But of course, that journey is taking you from there. Like you were starting to tell us about the high school experience and
Yes,
learning and being educated to read and write music.
Right.
And of course, getting to the next step, which is
production.
So
when I got back to Jersey, when I come back to Jersey, I was searching to find what instrument did I want to specialize in, and it was the bass guitar. So I asked my mother. I said, "Ma, can I get a bass guitar?" She said, "Okay, I'm gonna take you to the store." She brought me a bass, and I was probably around at the age of like 14, 15 years old. And I remember my first 6 months is staying in my room, just learning how to play that bass. Learning how to finger it, learning, just getting used to playing the bass. And then she said, well, if you're going to really do this, I want you to learn how to, do it properly. So I want you to learn how to read music. So every Saturday, I used to have to get up and go to this music, go to a music teacher, a private teacher that she hired. And every Sunday I would get up and he would teach me theory and, all kind of things and so on, so on. And it was jazz at first. So he taught me a lot of jazz. So, therefore, now I'm thankful now because knowing music and knowing theory has helped me, be a composer, be an arranger, and everything that I do. So, it really, helped me a lot.
When at the time when you were around 14, 15, what was the landscape like around Jersey? What was the heroes on television that you were seeing? Because I remember growing up, Jackson 5, that was a big thing.
Mhm.
Those Soul Train, all that stuff was going
Yep.
on. For you, was
Well,
it the same?
well, for us, it was like Parliament Funkadelic, Slave, because Slave was the leader. Slave was around the air from around the area that I was from. So it was Slave. It was Parliament Funkadelic. It was the Commodores. It was all those funk groups from back in the days. And at the time, I was in a band, and everything with some high school friends of ours, and we would do the high school talent shows and so on and so on, and it was about emulating those groups, trying to be like those groups, like Parliament, Funkadelic, and all those.
And see, that's important because people don't really get that,
Mm,
that those became the muses. Everybody wants to be like Cool,
yeah,
Slave, that
yeah. Cool in
those
the Game was one of my influences too. I can't forget Cool in the Game because
because they're a Jersey group.
that exactly, yeah, Jersey group.
And we
So
were blessed to have the man himself, Robert Cool, right here talk about that on this
yeah.
show. I
Oh, he's
can't
he's a
take that
nice
for
guy, man. He's a really cool.
humble guy.
Yes, very, very. He's one of the pioneers. He's one of the. I never forget watching them on Soul Train, and we all knew they was from Jersey City and everything like that. And we was like, yo, man, and it was Muslims and stuff like that, and it was just cool. There was just
Because that's important. They said, there was no such thing yet as boy bands, things like
nope,
that. That came later.
yep,
This was
real band.
off the doo-wop era. When you
Hmm.
look back 60s Motown, 50s doo-wop, 60s Motown, 70s funk, soul, then eventually disco, R&B, the whole thing.
Right,
Back then, this was leaders of the new
yep.
school.
Yep. These are who we emulate. These are the people that we wanted, as far as musicians, we want to be like. We want to emulate what they were doing so that we will see ourselves doing what they was doing.
And that's important. That's so on this journey, I guess, you're looking to make this band become the band, right? Like
Yep.
you're working towards that. You want to be not necessarily a superstar, but you want to get a chance to make records, and
Exactly.
right.
That's right. Well, at the time, the biggest band out in 1977 when we was coming up with Slave. They had the song Slide, and everybody played that song. But my group back then, we had a guitar player who could play that solo, lick for lick. And when we did the talent shows, we usually came in first place because my guitar my guitar player Greg Ayers, he could play, and then he would play with his teeth. So that was it was like real showmanship. So
So basically, we're coming off like almost like rock, like the Jimi Hendrix
yep.
mentality.
Oh, we was big into like the rock, the like I said, Parliament Funkadelic, because we would play Cosmic Slop and Maggot Brain, stuff like that.
And you really have to pick that apart because it does have rock influence.
That's right. Yep.
You
But see,
know,
the
it's
thing is
not
that,
right.
but the
You
thing is,
tell it.
Lenny, I grew up on not just R&B and funk, but I listened to rock too, like Journey and stuff like that. So, we would listen to we would listen to a whole eclectic stuff, through everything. We would listen to everything. So it wasn't just about, we knew Hendrix, we knew Clapton, we knew all those people. We knew of them because, we was musicians and they were musicians. It was about musicianship and not just records, not just a genre.
You know, before WBLS came on the air and FM radio, that's what you heard, rock
Hmm.
music.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I got to give WBLS a big push because they brought black music to the forefront, like really in New York radio, tri-state radio in a sense. You know,
Hmm.
we were listening to AM radio.
That's
Big
right.
difference. Almost, as I always say, amplitude modulation sounds like almost music.
Hmm. Yep.
Until FM came out, everyone was like, wow. You know, but again, that's 70, 71, 72. Then we're going in 75 when you're coming up through high school, 77.
Yep.
Disco starts.
Yep. Disco. But see, this is
Hippie and them and Zanzibar, all
yep.
that starts. So you're
Yep.
going to tell that story because you lived through that part too.
Yep. I'll never forget the first time I stepped foot in Club Zanzibar. All right. Before I would, because like I heard about the garage. All my musician friends, they would talk about garage and Zanzibar, and like they put the stigma to it, like, oh, you shouldn't go there because those people, you shouldn't be around those people. And I'm like, okay, so I'm the kind of person I like to see for myself what it really is. So I'll never forget the first time I stepped foot in Zanzibar, and I went in there and I heard all this music that I'd never heard before. Right? I was like, wait a minute, I never heard this music. Where did this music come from? And what I'll never forget, one of the first songs I heard that really caught my eye, that really like possessed me was "You Can't Play Around" by Lace. That and North End, um, Happy Days. I heard these records and I'm like, this is new to me, and I wanted to find out more about those type of records. And I said to myself, I said, I could do that, because all my friends, we was trying to break into the funk, to do the R&B thing, but it was like a whole nother world when I stepped into Zanzibar for the first time.
When you saw that and experienced that moment, I know you said you can do this because you have the musicianship behind you, okay,
Correct.
and the band experience at that point. Did you understand the recording studio process or any of the music industry yet? Or and let me rephrase that: not music industry, music business, because
Hmm.
that's a big difference than being in a band.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I did because I was around a lot of older musicians, and I used to go to the studio with them. We would hang out, and plus, like I said, I was doing studio sessions when I was 17 years old, when I was still in high school. So therefore, like like I would go to some sessions in New York at the big rooms and stuff like that, and I was like real curious, like what does that do? What does this do? And so on and so on. And the engineers just like, get away from me, kid, because I always ask them questions. What's this? A digital delay? What does a digital delay do? What does this do? So I was always curious about the gear in the studios whenever I went there. The control room was like wonderland to me. So I
That's that's the thing. If you're drawn to that,
yeah.
that that's like a magnet for someone like you. You know that
Yep.
that you see this and you go, I want to be a part of this, but I want to make this.
That's right.
All right. So give us the first Journey record. Come on.
Okay. The first Journey record was like, well, I used to go to, it was a studio in Jersey City that everybody used to go to. This guy named Joe Moore. And you would, I work my little job, whatever odd job I had, and take that money and go into Joe's studio and, record my ideas and so on and so on. So one day, when I was working at Club 88, and I was working at Club 88, and this guy comes up. I was doing the lights, and Stefan Johnson was the DJ, and then his partner was Ace Mungin. So Ace knew that I was a musician, and like that. I knew my way around the studio. So he said, "Look, man, I'm going to the studio to record this record, and I would like for you to come because, I need somebody that knows their way around the studio. Just come and hang out with us." I said, "Sure, Ace." So I went with them to the studio. He said, "I got this guy named Pierre. He's never really been in the studio, so I need you to work with him." And I said, "No problem." So I was only supposed to go there on a consultant basis just to make sure everything was going, was good. So we get to the studio, and I'm starting to see some of the things that the engineer is doing, and he's like taking them down the wrong path because I was the only one of us that really had studio experience. So I'm like, I stopped the search. I said, "Look, nah, this is not how we do this." And then that's when I took over, and I said, "We're gonna lay the drums down first, then we're gonna go to the bass, and we're gonna go to this." So, and I wind up, producing the session, and it was Paul Scott's "Off the Wall."
Well, as I was going to ask, that was the first. So that was the first official record you've actually put your teeth into, right?
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
And for Ace, was this more or less the beginnings of his journey as well?
Yes, it was. It was his first venture into, his, recording, doing a record for his label, which was Ace Beat. It was his first venture. It was the record that he did with Paul Scott, Pierre.
You have to really you take your hat off to someone like Ace.
Yes.
These are guys that hung out in the clubs,
Mm-hmm.
and they were venturing out to start making records.
Right.
They started seeing others like, at the time, T. Scott would have been mixing a lot of records at that time,
Yes.
Larry Levan
Yes.
and all. So people were seeing there's a chance to say, hey, I can do this. We can make a record and we can work it ourselves and self-promote it. Maybe not realizing all that.
Yeah.
Or just jumping in the cesspool of the cesspool.
Well, let's put it like this.
Far.
Ace, I gotta give it to Ace, right? Ace had a vision of what he wanted to do. He followed through on it. To me, Ace was fearless when it came to what he wanted to do. Ace is the one that started all of us, that progressed all of our careers as far as in dance music. Ace was that dude. To this day we call Ace the Godfather. Because of what what he mean and what he meant to the whole Jersey sound. He was the first one to do it.
Well, that's important too, because I always say there's someone that sets the flag, the post.
And he did that.
And I know, because I remember I was at that studio. I remember it like yesterday.
Yeah.
More than 35 years ago, and saying, wow, he at his house. I remember when he had that whole thing set up with the two rooms and all that. But again,
see, this is before he had the studio.
We're talking. This is him pulling money together, going to see, trying to right. He's personally financing it, right?
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna tell you a funny story. How you remember Hunter Hayes, right? The Hunter Hayes record.
100%. Of course, I remember. Of course.
That record, that Off the Wall record, was responsible for Hunter Hayes' record. Because what happened was, after I did the session with Ace, I went to my partner Guy Vaughn's house at the time. We was, because, like I was a groupie for Guy. I was not a groupie. I mean, I was a roadie for Guy's band, which was called Platinum Hook, which turned into Conquest, right? So at the time, I was roadieing for that group and everything like that. So me and Guy would hook up and everything. And I said, Guy, he had a 4-track Tascam cassette player and, a 4-track Tascam. So I with the guy said, yo, Guy got this idea for this track. Can I come over and cut it? He said, sure. So went over his house, He had it in his bedroom. I did my bass line and I did my drums and everything. And so on and so on. I said, God, man, I need you to put down a little keyboard part. He put down the keyboard part and then he went back and went to sleep. So after I played around with it for a while, I said, God, give me a quick mix of it. He gave me a little mix. I took that little mix that he gave me and then I gave it to Tony Humphries. Right? That track, that little mix was the track for Are You With It? That became Hunter Hayes' first record. So what happened was when we was out, me and Ace, we went out to this place called Importo Disc. You remember that place?
Yes, I do.
Okay, we was out in Importo Disc because
But
Ace.
hang on. I want you to explain to everybody. Very importantly, you
Good.
said you brought it to Tony Humphries.
Yes.
What did Tony Humphries do? What did Tony Humphries do to make that record become the beginning of what happened to it?
Well, what happened was Tony started playing the track on his radio show. He started playing the track. So nobody knew whose track it was. They just knew that Tony was playing this track and so on and so on. So, and this is where I was getting to the point with Importo Disc. So what happened was when me and Ace was out to Importo Disc, he was giving them his records to export and everything like that. The guy who owned the place said to Ace, said, "What are you coming with next?" And at the time, Ace didn't have any clues what he's going to do next. So then I said, "Well, I got a track," and I put the cassette in. And when I put the cassette in, it was playing all throughout the building. The guys who worked there, like Richie Jones, you know Richie Jones?
Yes, I do. I remember.
He was working there at the time. So Richie and he's all these other DJs. They said, "Wait a minute, we know that track. Tony played that track last week on his radio show, like that, right?" So the owner of the place said, "You know what? I got a friend that has a studio in Long Island. I want to hook you up with him," and so on and so on. Why don't you? And while me and Ace was out there, he said, "Why y'all out here in Long Island? Why don't y'all stop by his studio and talk with him?" His name was Lou Bolognese. So we went. We got directions. We went out to his studio in Merrick, in North Merrick, and we sat down and talked with him. And I played him the track. And the first thing he said to me, he says, "Do you got is this a song?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, do you got an artist for it?" And I said, "Yeah." Didn't have nothing. I was bluffing. I didn't have no track, no song, no lyrics, no anything. But I told, so the guy said, "What's the name of this?" I said, and I just out the top of my head said, "Are You With It?" Right? So Lou said, "Okay, well, why don't you come back with the singer and all written down and let's cut this." I said, "Okay," like that, right? So what happened was when we drove back to Jersey, I told Ace, I said, "Ace, drop me off at the Peppermint Lounge." And this was and I'll never forget this. This happened on a Wednesday. So he drops me off at the Peppermint Lounge. So I walk in the Peppermint Lounge and I see this guy on stage singing, and he sounded like Teddy Pendergrass, right? And I'm like, okay. So I walked up to the guy, when he finished the set, and I said, "I got the studio in Long Island that, I want to do this track with. Would you, be into doing it?" And he looked at me like, "Yeah, right." I said, "No, for real. We could go out there Friday and I'll show you the studio." And the guy said, "Okay, let's do it." So when I left the Peppermint that night, on my way home, walking home on the Peppermint, I wrote "Are You With It?" I wrote the song out.
Was Peppermint Lounge on Wednesdays an open mic night?
Yes.
I
Yep.
remember because Camacho used to go and used to tell
Yeah.
me that he was at the Peppermint Lounge.
Yeah. But they
and
would have they would have somebody hosting it, and the guy who was hosting it was Hunter Hayes.
And that's why I'm saying when he looked at you, he probably thought you was some kind of nonsense bull
Yeah,
crap
he did. He
producer.
did.
Like, oh man, I
Yeah,
ain't doing
he
this.
did. Because remember, at the time, I was like maybe 22, 23 years old. So he thought, like, this guy, this young guy, who's he? So I'm like, no, for real. And when I took him out that Friday to that following Friday, I took him out to Long Island. We went out there. He saw the studio. He saw that I was telling the truth. And then that's when we proceeded, and that's when Lou introduced me to this young engineer that was working at the studio that was going to work with me on the record, and his name was Ric Wake.
And of course, Ric Wake goes on to become
Yes.
later on another powerhouse in dance music
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
But
And
at that time, it's early days. Early
yeah,
days.
yeah. And at the time, he was living in the studio. He was living in because he was fresh from coming from England, and and everything. He was living in the studio. He was working with this girl at the time. Her name was Leslie. And they was doing like a lot of like high energy type of records and stuff like that. So I remember having this like real soulful voice. I'm like, why are you doing these high energy records on this girl? She has a very soulful voice, and she wind up doing the backgrounds on Honey Hayes' record. And as everybody would know, Leslie was turned out to be Taylor Dane.
Leslie Wonderman, everyone.
Leslie
Leslie
Wonderman. That's right.
Wonderman.
Yep. And she did
Let's
it. She
get
did
that right. Leslie Wonderman later becomes.
Taylor Dane. Yep.
That's that Long Island connection that's going on with, they're trying to get deals but yet
Yep.
everyone's fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to explain the facts of what and the importance to Ric Wake of how Kiss Master Mix, Tony Humphries, that whole scene, because they're not understanding any of that yet. I
Exactly.
know they're not getting that unless
Right.
you went to the Paradise Garage and
Mm-hmm.
you don't know any of that.
Yes.
So explain that as well.
Okay. So what happened was me and Rick, we did the record and everything. We produced the record together and stuff like that. And so on and so on and everything. So when we did the record, I told Rick, because at this time Rick, Leslie Wonderman, they never had a record on the radio before. They was doing all these records, but nothing was, getting on the radio. So I told them, I said, as soon as we finish this record, I'm gonna have it on the radio. And he looked at me and said, yeah, okay. I said, no, for real. As soon as we finish this record, it's gonna be on the radio. So what happened was we finished it, we did the mix and everything, and I drove all the way from Long Island, and I drove straight to BLS. And I gave it to Merlin Bob. Because at the time, Merlin was playing on BLS. And I gave it to Merlin. As soon as I came out the tunnel, Merlin was playing the record. Okay?
Now I know how important that is. BLS has gone the record now on the master
Yeah,
mix of
on the master. And
Merlin Bob on a Friday night working
That's
it.
right. That's right. And Merlin played the record. And Hunter told me when that record was playing, you remember that scene out of the Five Heartbeats when the record comes on the radio and everybody in the family's jumping up and down and stuff like that.
Hell yeah, I know that feeling personally. What that's like, it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah. Hunter told me, he said that was like how it was in his house when the record came on. That's how it was in his house. And Rick and Lou Bolognese, they called me up and was like, you said you was going to get this record on the radio. And I did. I did what I told them I was going to do. And,
they
the rest
dare
is history.
they said, like, back in those days, I could hear people say, man, you don't got those connections. What are you talking?
Yep.
Come on, you know how everybody was like, get out of here with that. Come on,
but see,
right?
I was at the time, between all that, I had built a relationship with T. Scott, with Larry Patterson, with Tony Humphries, with Merlin, and everything. So I had a relationship with these guys, and so on and so on. So by then, we had a relationship. So I knew that if I got
Well,
from the quality, they would play it.
clarify that because you were Lightman. Also, Merlin was working the door at Zanzibar. You
Right. But
know,
this is when Merlin was working the door, but then all of a sudden he had got a position playing at Zanzibar. After, he moved up from the from the doorman to, playing and then going to BLS, you know, because of his connection with Timmy Reserford and so on and so on. Because when Timmy left BLS to go to Atlantic, Merlin took his spot.
that's right. That's history right there, everybody.
Yep,
Merlin Bob was doing both nights.
that's
And
right.
the crazy part about New York radio, and I always say this, on 98.7 Kiss, you had Tony Humphries.
Yep.
And his cousin
Cousin, Merlin
on
Mob.
WB, World's Best Looking Sound.
Yep. And you want to hear something real funny? I remember I gave Merlin and Merlin and Tony a ride back to Brooklyn one day because something happened with their transportation or whatever. So I gave them both a ride back to Brooklyn. Ever since then we was cool.
And those
From
are the days
Zanzibar.
when those are the days when Tony still lived in Brooklyn
Yes.
before he moved to Jersey.
Or he moved
Right.
to Jersey. Yep.
East Orange. So on the story, Ric Wake, Taylor Dane, all these people are coming up. You're getting your teeth in the business now. Really.
Yeah.
You got BLS playing the record. You got Kiss Master Mix on the record. Who signs the deal on that first track?
Okay. The first track, when we first did Are You With It with Hunter Hayes, it was signed to Megabolt record, which was Lou Bolanese record. Lou then had a relationship with Bobby Gosson at 4th and Broadway. And 4th and Broadway, after Lou put it out for maybe 3-4 weeks, and it was playing on BLS, he did a deal with Island 4th and Broadway. And that's how it got to Island 4th and Broadway, to Bobby Gosson.
So Bobby Gossett licensed the record off of Lou.
Yeah, exactly. Of Lou Bolanese.
So
Yeah.
you had the production credit as well and writing?
Yes, of course.
No,
It was my song.
I want people to know that clearly.
Yeah, it was my song.
Because this business is crazy. You know how
Well,
people
Lou tried to put himself down as a writer.
See, that's what I was waiting. That's what I was waiting to hear. See, that's the part I want to hear. Wait, what? Lou tried to do what?
He tried to put himself down as a writer and a producer, and I hit the roof. I'm like, no, it's not going down like that, Lou. So I said, me and Rick did this record, not me, you and Rick.
So Lou wanted that shine. He wanted that light shine on.
Because you got to remember something. Lou had a past experience with Mark Berry with Alicia, and that was that was a really bad experience because Mark Berry did All Night Passion at his studio and then took it and made so much money off of it. Lou felt like he got burned. So Lou had this.
Well, that's the way the game plays.
Right.
If you didn't really write it, I remember was it Vanguard picked that record up, Alicia?
Yeah.
On that Passion.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Lou probably engineered it or whatever. He probably didn't write the record properly or didn't have that agreement in place, right?
He didn't, but he had an agreement with Mark Berry that he was supposed to be a partner on that record. And Mark Berry cut him out. And Lou, ever since then, Lou's been like, he was like, I had to suffer some of the transgressions from that situation, but it didn't go down the way Lou wanted to go down because I said, nah, you didn't write this record. Me, Rick, and Rick produced the record. Me and Guy Vaughn wrote the record.
Right, because you did it on his 4-track at his spot.
Yeah, right. It was me and Guy Vaughn. And then when we got the deal with and everything with 4th and Broadway, it was me and Rick that did the production. We the ones sat in that studio all night, and mixed it and did everything that, to get that record to fruition to where it got. So, like all the credit went to me and Ric Wake.
Okay, so now that you and Rick made this record happen, how far did
Mm-hmm.
the record take you business wise at that point?
Business White gave me in with Bob, because then I started building a relationship with Bobby Gosson over at 4th and Broadway. And Bobby took a liking to me and everything like that. So then we did the second record, which was This Time, which the way that record came about was this guy who I used to, play his I was his band background. He's one of his, his he had a group called Pure Natural. His name was Mikael Muhammad, and he owned a studio called 4 Bits, right? So, like he asked me, he said, "Come, I need you to come check out these young guys I got working in my studio. And, let me know what you think." So I went to the studio in East Orange in 4 Bits, and there was these young guys, doing their thing. And I'm like, okay, and I'm checking them out and everything like that. And one of the guys, the guy who was the lead singer, he kept saying, "Oh, this time, oh, this time." I'm like, wait a minute, that's a song like that, right? And I said, well, I want to do something with that. And that group was Blaze. It was Kevin Hedge, Chris, and Josh. I remember there was kids when I walked in that studio. And I told Mikael, I said, "Yo, these guys are good, man. And he kept them around, and they cut their teeth at 4 Bits at Mikael's studio.
That's before they were even on Quark.
That's before Quark, yeah.
This is before Curtis Sabina even got involved with them, right?
That's right. And see, Mikael Muhammad, like I said, I was the bass player in his band, like he had a group called Pure Natural, and I was the bass player. And Mikael is responsible for being one of the writers on Ladies Night. He wrote the part that "Come on, let's all celebrate." That's Mikael.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
Mikael Muhammad wrote that. And I'll never forget, I used to go to his house and I would see that platinum record that he had for Ladies Night. And I would look at it and say, one of these days I'm going to get one of those, And every time I would go to his house, I would look at that platinum record and stuff like that, But yeah, Mikael, he was one of the writers on Ladies Night. And we unfortunately lost Mikael a couple of years ago.
See, this is I try to tell people around the world. There's a lot of talent in that Jersey area. A
Oh,
lot of talent. My
you
God, there's
wouldn't
so much talent.
you wouldn't believe the time. You remember when I was coming up, I was hanging out with Dave Pitt Conley, Josh Thompson, the Young and Company. We all hung out together. Calvin Gaines and stuff. Who Calvin went on to produce Paparazzi for Lady Gaga and No 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 for Beyonce. That's my boy. Me and Calvin still work. We work together. We wrote a song last night together. So
Jesus, wow, that's what I'm saying. That's I tell people people don't know. They don't know.
no. See, Jersey, the whole the whole dance music scene from Jersey, it goes further back than what people know. It goes back to when Pick Conley did the first Surface record, which is "Falling in Love." You remember that record?
Sure do.
Okay, I remember when Pick did that record in his living room, and I remember the first person to play that record was Bob Sumner's on SOU, because I remember Pick finished the record and we took it over to SOU. I remember waiting in the car while they took it up to Bob Sumner's and Bob played it on SOU.
And that's important. In those days, that radio play
Mm-hmm.
stamped your approval. That,
That's right.
you didn't have to go and bring an envelope.
Nah,
This
because
was
you had
real pure love.
yeah,
People really feel for music.
you had back then you had guys that really loved the music. If you did something good and of quality, they would play it. It's not like today. Today, like you give a DJ a record, they wait 60 days before they even listen to your record. And it's like because and then a lot of it has to do with there's so much music now. There's so many people doing it. So therefore, it's a lot of quantity, but not a lot of quality. So
That's the problem. It's
yeah,
everybody's inundated with too much information,
that's right.
too much music.
That's right.
It's a different game now. But back
Yeah,
then it
'cause-
was simpler. A lot
yeah.
simpler back then.
Oh, lots of back then. Like I said, we could go to Zanzibar and give Tony a reel, and Tony would play it. And see, I'm gonna tell you this, the importance of that. We like people like myself, Backroom, a lot of the Jersey talent, and then also, even though he's not from Jersey, I gotta lump him in there. Paul Simpson, Winston Jones, right? We would all give Tony and them reel to reels, and they would play it, right? And also, the person who I think is more responsible for not only Jersey but house records and in general was Boyd Jarvis. Boyd to me is one of the people that that is the pioneer of this whole genre, this whole underground dance music. So we would all give Tony and them and T. Scott and Larry Patterson would give them reels, not knowing that they were sending copies of our reels out to Chicago to Frankie Knuckles because Frankie Knuckles was their boy, and Frankie Knuckles would play our stuff in Chicago, and we didn't know that, but and them Chicago cats can say what they want, but we influenced them, like the Boy Jarvises, the Paul Simpsons, the Back Room, myself. We kind of influenced some of the things that they did, even though they won't admit it, but we did.
Well, I get yelled at every time when I go
Hmm.
who music.
That's right.
Music's got me. Boom, 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 boom. Electronic drums.
Hmm.
Boy Jarvis on the bass line.
Right.
Prelude Records.
Hmm. That's right.
Timmy Regisford. Tony Humphries. They're all on that record.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember when Boyd did that Colonel A was running that demo that everybody was playing, you know, um, and music is the answer. You know, those were real underground records. Real underground records. You couldn't buy those records. You had to know somebody to get a tape of those records, and so on and so on. And like I said, Boyd is the unsung king of this whole underground dance music. He's the king
Well,
of it.
you got to give Boyd a ton of respect because Timmy and him were on BLS, and Boyd would
Hmm.
be playing live
Yep.
over those tracks, which
Yep.
was,
See,
again,
I give both Timmy and Boyd a lot of a lot of credit because you know Timmy with him bringing Boyd in, he was like one of the first DJs to bring a musician in while he was DJing. Timmy did that. Nobody else did that. You know what I'm saying? So you have to give Timmy his due, his due for what he did. And see, a lot of people like Timmy, and also, and also another person I go back with in Jersey that I go way back with was Dave Cole. Okay, you remember Dave Cole, right?
I don't remember meeting him, but I know who he is. Yes.
Okay, Dave. I tried to recruit Dave to be in my band. Dave was 16, I was 17, right? And Dave lived in Passaic, when we was in Orange and so on and so on. So we heard about this keyboard player that was supposed to be dope.
You
So
mean David Cole from CNC?
That's right.
Of course, I
David
knew
Cole from
David Cole.
PNC.
I'm sitting here going, which Dave Cole you talking?
Yeah,
David Cole, right?
David Cole. So we recruited, so we auditioned him and everything. It was on a Saturday. I'll never forget this. He came out, somebody drove him out to East Orange. So we was like, bet, we want you to be our keyboard player. And he said, yeah, but there's a problem. I said, what's the problem, Dave? He says, well, my grandmother doesn't like me out past 7 o'clock. So I got to be home by 7 o'clock. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. He said, yeah. He says, I never make it home from East Orange to Passaic by 7 o'clock. So that right there killed him being in our band. But another ironic thing about Dave is exactly 1 year younger than me. He was born on June 3rd. And I was born on June 3rd, but a year before him.
Wow.
Yeah, we was.
But then David Cole starts to work with Bruce Forrest.
Yes.
At Better
Yep.
Days playing keyboards.
I remember that. Yep. And I would tease Dave whenever I saw Dave at Better Days. I said, Dave, your grandmother know you, it's 7 o'clock. Your grandmother know you out this late? And he would just laugh at me. He was just giving me this look and laugh.
What?
Yeah. But Dave was he was a very special dude. I'll never forget me and my partner Guy Vaughn, right? We was over at Manny's Music, and Guy never met David at this time. This is right after Dave did Do It Properly and stuff like that. And he brought an emulator, right? So me and Guy was also shopping at Manny's, right? And we drove over there. That parking lot right next to Manny's? We parked there. So, I introduced Guy to Dave and everything, and so Guy said, Dave, we'll give you a ride back to Jersey instead, because Dave was going to take that emulator that he just brought. He was going to lug it on to Port Authority and take it on the bus. And we said, no, we'll give you a ride back. So Dave gets in the back, so we put his emulator in the trunk and everything like that. And Dave is so happy he didn't have to take that bus ride back to Passaic. So we get to Passaic, and Dave is like, okay, guys, can I get my emulator out the trunk? And Guy looks at Dave and says, what emulator? Like that. And Guy looks at me and says, yo, Seth, didn't you always want an emulator? I said, yeah. And then he looks at Dave and says, we're from East Orange. We take your stuff. And Dave, on the look on Dave's face, was like, oh my God, these guys are going to take my emulator. And then we bust out laughing and said, Dave, man, we was only messing with you. And we gave him his emulator and stuff like that. But I miss Dave, man. He was a very, very sweet guy.
He was a sweetheart.
Yes, he was. And like
a real sweetheart and humble. Another
and
humble brother.
Every time I would see Dave, he would give me love. Like, yo, what's up, Sad? And he's another pioneer that's going too soon. Dave Cole was, and like I said, every June 3rd, I say happy birthday to him, because, like I said, we share the same birthday.
That is absolutely crazy. But you see, this is what I mean about that Spaghetti Junction. And of course, we talk about David Cole, and then you also off camera mentioned about David Morales, and how you were part of that posse that helped put that together.
Well, what happened was Morales was when he just got to Zanzibar, me and Guy, we did this record for Island Record for 4th and Broadway on this girl named Pam Russo. You remember her? I don't know if she did freestyle records.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so we did her first record, and Bobby Gossett signed it 4th and Broadway. So me and Guy took a liking to Dave Morales, because we met him down Zanzibar, and Dave was like a cool dude, right? So being that this record was more of a Latin hip hop record, we offered for Dave to do the mix on it, and we brought Dave in to do the mix on the record, and me and Guy wind up doing the mix ourselves.
That's what I was going to ask. Did Morales have any studio experience yet, or was he just
Not
starting?
at that time. We put him behind the SSL and said, "Okay, Dave, do your thing." He looked at us and says, "I've never worked on the SSL before." And me and Guy looked at each other like, "Okay," and and we wind up doing it ourselves. It was at Platinum Island. You remember Platinum Island?
Yes, I remember Platinum Island
Yeah,
downtown.
yeah, downtown, right down the street from Fourth and Broadway. So
By
yeah,
right by Great Jones, right over there. It
yep,
was in.
uh-huh,
Yep.
yep, yep. So
Oof, that's a long time ago.
oh my God, man,
It's like
long
another
time.
life. It's when you look back, you say that's a lifetime, another
Yeah,
lifetime.
when Tower Records was open, Fourth and Broadway is right over Tower Records and stuff like that, and that's when, to me, that was a golden period in the music business. You know, like at the time, me and Guy had records on both Fourth and Broadway and on Profile. So like we was and then like you remember the Keisha Jenkins record, right?
I need somebody.
Yeah, I Need Somebody. Yeah,
I need somebody.
Tony was instrumental in that
Well,
record.
Larry
Yes.
Levan was killing that record too. I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah. Well, Tony was very instrumental in getting that record signed because what happened was there was some industry party at Zanzibar, and Tony played the record, and Claudia Cassetta from Profile was there, right? And she played the record, and she said, "Tony, whose record is this?" Because at the time it was on the Real to Real, and Tony said, "Oh, Shedrick and Guy, the Fly Guys, they did this record." And she said, "I want to meet him." And she met with us and said, "Look," and she was like, "I want to sign this record." But at the time, we was going to give the record to Fourth and Broadway because they wanted the record at the same time. And also, if we didn't get it signed, we also Abigail Adams was the one that funded us going in the studio with cutting the record. So we didn't get a record deal. We was going to put it on her label. And on top of that, um, Merlin wanted to sign that record to Atlantic, and at the time, Merlin was ready to do the deal for the record, and Sylvia at the time KO'd it. But then she regretted it because what happened was she was in a car, and Corey Robbins put that record right out when he got the record. He put it right out during the Christmas holidays, and it was on BLS. And Marilyn said they was in the car together. The record came on, and Sylvia says, "Why didn't I sign that record?" And the rest is history.
It's crazy because back then you're walking around town
Mm-hmm.
and people are watching what you're putting out. So
Yep.
they know who you are because this record's coming out on this label, that record's coming out on that label. So it doesn't even necessarily mean how good the record is now. It's about jocking it to get the next record off of you
Yep.
because you're hot now.
Mm-hmm. Hold on. You want to hear a funny story?
Go ahead.
When when we was thinking about what we was gonna put that record, because we was eventually gonna go with Fourth and Broadway because of our relationship with Bobby Gossett. Corey Robbins called my house, and Guy got on the phone, and Corey was like, "I want to sign this record. I'm gonna give you such and such amount of money." And my partner Guy said, "Corey, you gotta be kidding. We already got an offer for this amount of money." And at the time, Profile had never paid as much as they paid for "I Need Somebody," and we got more money than a lot of people for that, advance wise for that record than a lot of people, that was already signed to Profile. Because like I said, Island they was going to sign it for a certain amount. And when Corey got wind, I think his competitive nature took over, and he said, "Look, I'm gonna beat Island," and he did.
I
And
wish it was like that now.
oh,
Oh my God, I wish it was like that now with Merlin Atlantic and Sylvia Roan and all of them. I wish it was like that
well,
now.
A&R, the whole A&R landscape is so much different. You don't have music people in there no more. You don't have people that know music that live, breathe it. That's not what the record. They're more data driven and analytics and stuff like that. It's not about the music anymore. It's not about how something sounds or how it makes you feel. It's about how many views you get on TikTok or the music business changed. Like before, like I said, we could go to one of the clubs, give it to the DJs, they put it right on, and that would create a buzz, and then everybody was like, "Yo, I want this record." Or if Larry Levan played your record at the garage, and so on and so on, then
One
next,
weekend.
yeah,
All you
the
need
next
is one
day,
weekend to play the record. One weekend. One
yeah,
weekend.
I'll never forget going into the garage and hearing the Peach Boys for the first time, and Larry played that record like 8 times in a row, and after that, it was over. They was like the biggest things since Rice Krispies, you know. So back then, DJs meant something, and they played records. They played records and they would break records. Now these DJs, they only want to break their own records. If they didn't
Because
make the
it's not
record,
about the music anymore.
no, it's not about the
It's
music.
about not the music. That's the difference. When I
Yeah,
remember coming up, it was all about the music. Always.
it's not about the music no more. It's not about good music. It's not about like music that makes you feel something. It's about it's too political now. It's not the same. It's that's why for a while I had to leave the music business, because to me it was not the music business I came up in. And then I went into publishing. Being a publisher and stuff like that. In the '90s I became an A&R executive.
And what did you sign?
Okay.
That now you could talk about that part because that changed. You changed hats. You
Yes.
left the side sitting behind in front of the desk. Now you're behind the desk and
Yeah.
handling it. What's that all
Well,
entailing?
my first record I signed to A&M DV8 Records was Raw Stilo. It was a song called Cutie that was brought to me, and Deuce Martinez produced the record and the demo and stuff like that. And I thought that this record was like, I was like, this is the next thing. And at the time, it was a girl named Chandra Simmons and Carmen Brown. There was the group. And like I said, I signed. When I first heard the record, I signed it right then and there to a demo. I wouldn't let them leave my office until we had a deal memo, because I saw how much I believed in that record, and so on and so on. So
When
uh,
you talk about signing records back then, what kind of advances were they rolling out back in those days?
okay, we signed that record. We signed that record. We first signed it to a singles deal, and I think we gave like $15,000 for a single deal, and so on and so on. But then we turned that into an album deal, and at the time, I think we advanced the girls 30 grand, to start the album, and then they would get another, 15, and then they would get whatever was left in the budget. They would get that we didn't spend. So that's back then, the advances was pretty decent. There wasn't like there wasn't the $1 million advances that some of these rappers get now these days, but they was decent.
Well, it's a different game now.
Yeah,
The
much
hip
different.
hop game is a different. You're talking about these records weren't really necessarily become pop records. They may have done really well radio wise in a regional standpoint, but they weren't. Some records popped through,
Right,
not many. So
right.
it was a crapshoot for a lot of these records to make it.
Yeah. Well, see, the things that like I said, remember back then you had to shoot a video, because when we did the video for Raw Stilo, I gave Malcolm Lee, who went on to do The Best Man and Undercover Brother and all that stuff. I gave him his first shot, because when I started looking at different reels and stuff, I saw his reel, and then also noticed that he was Spike Lee's cousin. And he was fresh out of NYU's film school, and I liked his reel a lot, so I chose him over a lot of bigger directors at the time because I thought he was that dude, and we shot their video. I didn't get a big budget for it. I got maybe, I think we shot that video for like $45,000 and stuff like that, and we shot it in Wingate Park in Brooklyn and so on and so on. But yeah, I gave him his first video, his first job.
How'd the record do overall for you?
Well, let's put it like this: A&M DV8 was it was their first entry into music, and they didn't have their promotion and everything set up correctly to take the record where it should have been. We was getting play on Video Soul and so on and so on, but the thing is that we wasn't getting the radio play in New York that we needed to take the record to the next level.
And sometimes I have to ask because I remember, Frankie Crocker had that show on BLS at the time, Make It or Break It.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was still around that time when that record came out.
Yeah.
And some people don't understand that you needed to have some serious payola. Not necessarily to buy your way in.
Well,
You
let's
need
put it
to
like
have
this.
some sort of payola to work a record.
Let's put it like this. It was not just the payola; it was the politics. And like at that time, black music was dominated by black. By like it's like this. You had pop music, you had black music, and you had Latin freestyle music. Everything was so segregated at the time. And when we started A&M DV8, let's put it like this: we didn't have a lot of our politics wasn't there for black music, so therefore we wasn't in certain situations to get that record to the next point because you had to be in with certain people in order for your record to get to the next level. So
That's so important. So,
yeah,
so important.
yeah, yeah, and I learned that. I learned that like like for instance, if like say for instance, when we did AMDVA, it was Ric Wake was the owner of that label, him and Denise Rich. So therefore, to the R&B guys, they look like pop people getting into black music. If you understand what I'm trying to say. So even though I was the face of the urban side, they they looked at them as like these people are trying to entrench on our territory. So
Totally. I could hear it. Yo, what's up with that lily white nonsense going on?
exactly, man. But see, I was the face of it. I was that dude. I was the one running around, and like I said, Cutie was our first release because I went to BRE with them, and and so on and so on, and like even though I was the face of it, everybody was looking like, yeah, but you don't own it. You know what I'm saying? So
What does it take to get you to break into that? To have those connections.
politics. Politics. You got like back then, remember that was the 90s. So, like you had to be down with certain management companies, you had to be affiliated with this person. Remember at that time Uptown was popping, so was this was the beginning of Puff and everything. So it was like a real, how could I put it? It was real political at the time.
Let's be real now. Andre Harrell,
Yep.
Sylvia Rhone,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Bruce Carbone.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
List goes on and on. And black music was controlled from that triangle. It was like, there
Yeah.
was a few others and that's it. It was
Yep.
like you didn't have much place to roll. SPK,
Well, you know, SBK, I did a record with Guy Moot. You know that, right? I did
oh,
Fly Guys Rock the Underground with
I
Guy
moved.
Moot and with SBK and stuff like that. It was never released here in the States, but was released in Europe
And Guy Moot went on to become head of publishing.
at Warner's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I did a deal with him, I remember. But
Yeah,
at
but
that
then
time, he
before,
was making records. He was.
yeah, yeah. And I and at the time, like when me and Guy did Fly Guys Rock the Underground, he was also working with Marshall Jefferson at the time too. And he had signed a young lady named Vicky Ryan that I introduced to Marshall. And I did one song on that project, but it never came out because of the project was mismanaged financially, and Guy became very upset about how that project got mismanaged. But like I said, when we did Fly Guys Rock the Underground, we did everything because remember Crown Heights Affair was on that album. So was we did Keisha Jenkins was supposed to be on that album, but something happened and we had to switch her out. And also Kenny Bobien was supposed to be on the album.
So a lot of names that became synonymous in dance music at that time were real early, very
Yep.
early coming up, starting
Well,
to get their feet.
Kenny Bobien and Eddie Stockley started with me and Guy. They was doing all the backgrounds for all the records that we did. And they was like maybe 16, 17 years old, singing backgrounds. Then it was Kenny, Eddie, and Keisha Jenkins. So any records that me and Guy did, they was doing the backgrounds on those records. And
And I
then,
know what happens. People were hearing him on your records, was saying to him, "Yo, could you come cut backgrounds on my record?"
yep.
Such and such.
And I remember one of the people that heard them on me and Guy's records was Pitt Conley from Surface. He was like, "Yo, who's doing y'all backgrounds?" And we said, "Oh, that's Kenny and Eddie." And Pick says, "Yo, I need you to send them over here." So we sent them to Pick, and then Pick started using them, and then this person started using them, and that person started using them. And then they was on everybody's record at that time. But
Yeah, it's that falsetto sound that they had.
yeah,
That the
oh,
combination was
the
just tight.
blend that they had.
That
But see,
blend was
remember,
tight.
yeah, but they started with me and Guy. We the ones that put them in the studio and was like, "This is how you got to do it. This is how you do everything."
And and again, once again, everybody gets their start,
Mm-hmm.
and you helped make that happen.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And still to this day, unfortunately, um, Eddie is having he's in a coma right now. Yeah. Right now, and we don't know if he's gonna, make it or not. And Eddie, I loved Eddie. Eddie was the plug. Eddie brought us Keisha Jenkins.
Oh my God.
Eddie
Eddie
also,
Stockley's in a coma.
yes.
People say it's funny because I've been saying people wrote, "Oh, he's gone,"
No, he's
and then
not.
some people wrote, "No, no, no, he's not gone." I didn't know he was because I he came out to my studio in the early '90s and cut
Yeah.
backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. Eddie. Like he went into a coma on December 6th, and the thing is that I had talked to Eddie, maybe like a couple of days before that, because I know how sick he was and his health issues and so on. So I would call him like every week and just to see how he was doing and everything like that. Because, like I said, Eddie and Kenny go back with me when they was kids, and I would send Eddie stuff and everything like that. See how get his opinion on stuff and everything like that. And he's at the and like I said, he had very bad health issues. He had diabetes and
and that usually does it. And then if you don't take care of it,
he was on and unfortunately he had a stroke and went into a coma, and right now he's still like I talk to his mother almost every other day. I call his mother to see how he's doing and everything, and like he's still hanging in there, but we don't know what's going to happen. So I'm just praying for him, and I wish everybody else would pray for Eddie. Because he's a good soul. That brother.
Eddie Stockley was a talented brother and a great guy.
I
remember.
I had got him signed up for from Broadway.
I figured you had that input to that. I had a feeling that.
And one thing about that record that we did on Eddie Stockley is so special to me is because I got T. Scott to mix it. And
probably one of the last records that T's mixed on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And I'm gonna tell you something. T. Scott was special to me. Out of all the DJs,
great DJ
that I listened to, T. Scott to me was the best. The best. When T. Scott was on, there's nobody better than the T. And see, that's the thing. These kids, this generation today, will never know the greatness of people like T. Scott. Because T was like, he was, like I said, the records that he played at Zanzibar when I first walked, because he was the DJ when I first walked into Zanzibar, and I heard all these glorious records, and it was T's record, like all the records that he mixed, like If You Read My Mind and Happy Days, and all those records that he mixed, those are some of my favorite records, that he did, and I just,
Yep.
And I'm honored that I got him to mix one of my records, because he was the one
I remind everybody about one thing that I'll never forget with T. Scott.
Mm-hmm.
T. Scott's foot, when he DJ'd, he pound that floor.
Yeah.
And on the dance floor, you would feel him pounding his foot. I was like, it's like a hammer.
Yep.
Never forget that.
Oh, T, like I said, when T was on, there was nobody better than him. Nobody could compete, because T would tell stories with the music that he played all night. He would tell you a story if you sat there and you listened to T play. And like I said, T DJ like a musician. He didn't DJ like normal DJs. He would DJ like a musician. He would play stuff that really went into the next record, and so on and so on. Like there's a mix that T used to play that all the DJs copied, the Shaka Khan, and when he did "I Know You, I Love You," the way he would start it off, and then he would do this certain cut and go back to the beginning. And I heard DJs copy that mix, that he did. And like I said, T. Scott, special. He was
legendary.
Him, Larry Levan, Larry Patterson, they was all legendary, DJs. They are the reasons why, like the DJs that came after them were able to do what they did, like the Dave Moraleses and so on and so on, because they laid the groundwork.
100%.
But for people like Dave Morales and Louis and some of the other ones that came after them, they laid the groundwork for them.
And you couldn't put it better.
Yeah,
I want to tell you something. You're a true legend, bro. You got a lot of story.
Oh,
I'm gonna leave it here.
Man,
I leave it here.
I want to ask you a question. Do you ever remember a record on Strictly Rhythm called Black Man? It was a record named Organ Dance.
I think so, yeah. Early 90s, right?
The early 90s. I did that record, and a lot of people don't know I did it.
I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, I did that record. That's me.
Wow.
I played the organ and everything. That's me.
Who signed it? Was it Gladys Pizarro?
Nope,
or
it was George.
George Morel did it, right?
Yep, because I'm gonna tell you why George did it. Because George had a relationship with me and my partner Guy. This before he became the George Morel everybody knew he was. He wanted to he's like, how do I get in the music business? And Guy liked George, so we brought him over to a Fly Guy Studios, and he would come all the way from New York and just come and hang out with us, and so on and so on. And we would teach him how to do this drum machine, how to work this, and how to do that. And he learned, really fast and stuff, and so on and so on. And I remember, I'm gonna give you a true house story, okay? You're gonna love this.
Go ahead.
It was George Morel, C.C. Rogers, Marshall Jefferson. We was all, and my partner Guy, and all some. So it was a cold night, and we had to drop George Morel down to Penn Station, Newark, right? So we all piled in CC's van. Now, mind you, CC van doesn't have any heat in it, okay? So we in there all cold. So we're on our way down, but then we stopped at this McDonald's in Newark. So we said, okay. So CC was like, no, and we saw it at McDonald's, but the McDonald's was closed, right? And CC said, I guarantee I could get food. We said, CC, the McDonald's is closed. He said, nah, I'm going to get some food. So he walks up to the drive-in, right? And he shows his face or whatever, because this is when Some Date was out. They let him in the McDonald's. And we look at each other like, how's he going in the McDonald's? He gets in the McDonald's, he comes out with all these bags of food. And we're just shaking our head like, only CC could do something like that. And
well, how the hell did he get the food after hours? He knows somebody in there?
No, he went to the window and he says, I'm CC Rogers. Someday he started singing it.
Wait, it was who the hell CC Rogers? He had to sing the song a little bit, right?
And they knew the workers knew the song, and they let him in and they gave him.
Wait. Yo, go give me some potato frites.
Yeah.
Get us the burgers. They threw all kinds of stuff here. Got all the extra shit when we throw it out.
Yeah, they gave him all this free food. He came back with 2 bags of
Now that's a true Hollywood house, true house story.
And me and Marshall Jefferson and George and my partner Guy, we all looked at each other like, only CC could do something like this. So yeah.
Guy is gone too. How long is Guy gone?
Guy died in 91. He passed away.
Damn, that's a long time.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah, he left us in 91, man. And he was going too soon, because I'm gonna tell you something. If Guy didn't pass, we was on our way to being the next dudes like Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and Babyface in LA. We was on our way because we had a meeting set up with Clarence Avant that, through Lisa Jackson, that we was gonna have that meeting with Clarence Avant to be the next dudes. And Guy passed away. And see, the thing is that I was talking to Byron Stingley the other last week, and he said, "Man, you and Guy, y'all could produce anything, whether it was dance, R&B, like Latin freestyle. Y'all could produce anything." I said, "Yeah, because we was musicians. We could go in the studio and produce whatever we need to produce."
And because a good song is a good song.
That's right.
You know how the fundamental part is write the song.
That's right.
And then the stylistic part of it can be easily swayed anyway.
Yeah, and then you hit it right on in there. It's about the song. It was always about the song. And,
that's what it was like when you sat with Merlin or this one or that A&R person. They listened to those records and they wanted to hear if that hook was strong enough. Even before the verse came in, they wanted to know if that hook grabbed them.
That's right.
That was true A&R-ing.
That's right.
That's
right. Like, for instance, right? That record, I Need Somebody. You know how that record happened? And this is a true Hollywood story. This is a true house story too, right here. What happened was, me and Guy had a studio in the attic of Eastern Artists Records Eastern Artist Recording Studio. And we had a studio in the attic, and we was supposed to be working on a song for Eddie Stockley, right? So Eddie brought this girl to sing backgrounds on his record. So so what happened was Guy and Eddie went to the store, and I had this drum beat up, and I was playing this bass line, and she started singing, "I need somebody, I want somebody." I'm like, wait a minute. So let me record this real quick, and I recorded it. And then when Guy and Eddie came back, I played it for them, and Guy looked at me and said, "Yo, man, you might got something with this." And the next day, we went to Keisha's house and wrote the song out, and then recorded. That's how I Need Somebody came.
And that, my friends, is where there's always a story behind a story.
That's
And
right.
that's how things happened back then. Like you
Yep.
were actually set to do one thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then a left turn happened,
That's right.
and you ended up somewhere else.
That's
Or 3 songs came from the one song,
mm-hmm.
which
But
happened a lot.
and see, music back then was so free and so unpredictable. You didn't. It wasn't. There wasn't no like template for it. It was about like it would come from anywhere. A good song could come from anywhere. Like when I did a song on By All Means called "Somebody Save Me," right? Because what happened was Bobby Gosson called me and Guy in and said, "Look, I got this group that I signed to Island, but they have no up-tempo songs. Can you give me one?" And we said, "Yeah." So what happened was I had wrote this song because I was at Club 88, and I seen this guy talking to his, he was talking to his guy saying, "Yo, man, y'all gotta save me because I'm dancing with this girl, but I'm getting married, and if I keep dancing with this girl, I might not get married. So I need y'all to save me." And I'm like looking at this guy, and I'm like, "That's a song." And that's when I wrote "Somebody Save Me."
You know the other important part I'm thinking about, like when you mentioned about Fourth and Broadway and Bobby Gossett
Yeah.
and all these people.
Hmm.
You know, when disco started, they were right there
Yeah.
promoting those records. A lot of them worked. I think if I remember correctly, Bobby worked for Salso.
Yes, he did. And he also worked for he also worked at what's that label?
West End?
Not West End. It was what's that label? It's on the tip of my tongue. I think it was distributed through Atlantic.
Cotillion?
Not Cotillion. Um it-
Emergency.
no, not Emergency. It was not Emergency. But he worked for, because that's how he knew Larry Patterson. I remember because they worked at the same label and stuff like that. But
Well, Larry, I know Larry worked at Salso as well, Larry Patterson.
yeah, but it wasn't Salsa. It was another label that they worked at together. But anyway, Bobby, to me, Bobby Gosson was a true record man. He was a true record guy. He signed something off a feeling, and if he liked it, he loved it. And Bobby would go to bat for you and stuff like that. I loved Bobby. Bobby was my dude. Bobby Gosson. He loved me and Guy. He called us the Fly Guys. We was his guys. So he would call us when he needed a record, and we would, oblige him because we didn't want to let Bobby down.
And then he would walk the record in and bring the record and make a success out of it because he
Yeah.
believed in it. And
Yep.
that's what true A&Ring is. It's not just
Yep.
inception, but it's all the way to delivery.
Like I said, Bobby was a true record man. He was that
And that is what's missing
in
now.
today's. That's right.
Quality control.
That's
Quality control.
And you don't have true record people. Like for instance, right? That's why I have went to publishing, because at least with publishing, you still had to have good songs. You still had to A&R good songs, and you had to work with the writers and you had to instruct them like, okay, you need to get to your hook faster. You need to not let your verse be so congested, and so on and so on. You had to teach your writers and stuff like that. And you know, publishing. When I went to the publishing in the 2000s and the 2010s and 15s, to me that was that was better than being in the music in the record business, because the record business is too political, and right now it's sad, because half these kids that are artists, they're not that good. They can't perform live. Like, I'm not.
Oh, you forgot, bro? Eighth place is number one now?
Yeah, let's put like, I'll never forget. I'm not going to mention this artist's name because I don't want to do that. But I remember a couple of years ago, this artist came out as a female, and she had this record that became big. But they worked this record for a whole year, but finally it became big, and they put it on a tour. And she was getting 80 grand a show, but she was terrible, terrible. Okay, until they finally said, you know what, we can't let this girl tour no more until she gets, some kind of development. And that's another problem. These artists don't have development, and you know, they don't know how to perform. They don't know they don't know when to take the mic off the mic stand, to engage with the audience, and so on and so on. They have no clue, and that's one of the problems. Is that you know the artist development is not there. Like, for instance, another thing that's not there anymore is we have no clubs in New York, in New Jersey no more. Where are you going to go and listen to the latest dance record? There's no place to go to. There's no Zanzibar. There's no garage. You know.
And more so when there is a party, it's like a gathering of an oldies party in a
That's right.
sense. Now,
Exactly.
that's not bad. It's not a bad thing. It's just it's not a weekly thing. So it's like more
Mm-hmm.
like a gathering of that moment, and we're hearing all the greatest records of all the time. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not. You're not going to hear new
Yeah,
tracks.
they're
It's not
not
going to
breaking.
happen.
They're not breaking new records. Like, it's like this. I recently did a record on Kenny Bobbitt. It was a gospel record that I remade called Nobody Knows, right? And I've had people hit me up about that record and told me how great that record sounds. They tell me, they said, look, man, it just said that record sounds good. I had somebody call me from South Africa to tell me how great that record sounds. And it's a gospel record, but we did dance music, dance mixes on that record. I didn't do the dance mixes. I had other people do it because I just did not want to do the dance mixes. But when I did that record, all the instruments are played live. I played bass on that. Um, I had live guitars, live pianos, live drums. That's a live drummer. And then I produced Kenny's vocals. I did his vocals right here in my bedroom. And and then I did a choir. I did a choir at this studio called Sound on Sound in Montclair. But did you ever hear that record yet, Lenny?
Yes, I did. You sent it over. It was very good.
Yeah, right.
Very good.
Right. And I worked hard on that record. But people don't work hard on records anymore. They put in their DAW, and and use sample packs, and call it a day, because that's why all these records sound the same, because it not only sounds in the house, but in hip hop and R&B and in pop records, they all sound the same because everybody's using the same sample packs. And
Well, it's easy.
yeah, it's like
Well, it's like add water and stir. Tang, baby.
no, you know what it is? You remember the coloring books we used to get where it would tell you what color to put it in?
In other words,
Paint by
number one was green.
Yeah,
Number two was red.
right, exactly. No creativity, no expression. It's no where.
But it's even worse than that, brother.
Yeah,
It's
it's
about AI,
yeah.
artificial intelligence making the records now.
Oh my God, man! Please, let's not even talk about AI, man.
Oh,
I
I'm
mean,
serious. That's it. It's just the way it is. AI. It got people AI making
I
records.
know that. I know. I've seen it. So like
How do you compete with robots making 1,000 records every 5-10 minutes?
You can't.
You can't
You can't.
physically, humanly, and creatively. It's not possible.
Yeah. Well, it's like this. Understand something. I still value songwriting and people making quality records. Like it's so far and few between. It's so far between where I hear a record that grabs me, and I don't hear a lot of records today that like made me like for instance, I'll never forget the first time I heard Luther's "Any Love." Me and my partner Guy, we was in the car and we was on our way to somewhere, and that song came on, and I looked at my partner. I said, "Damn, I should have wrote that record," because that's how great. That's because I could hear the realness in the song and his words. But you don't hear that today. You don't hear none of that. You just hear something that's rehashed by somebody else, and like I said, the same sample packs and the same drum machines, the same like this. Like I hate that sleepy house records, man. Oh my god, they put me to sleep. It's like give me something like that's why when we listen to dance records, I like going back and listen to the Shaka Khans and all those records from back in that era because it was real songs, it was real musicianship.
But even when you see their dance records, take the dance away. They're just great, excellent, well produced, fabulously written,
Right.
top notch in
It
every
has
way.
songs. Exactly.
You
Exactly.
could take that beat away and listen to it music pella and
Uh-huh.
go, holy smokes.
Like some of the Lolita Holloway. Like one of my favorite records from that era was Relight My Fire. Dan
Oh
Hart.
yeah.
Oh my God, man. That record when by the time Lolita came in, oh my gosh, she just kills it when she come in. But Dan Hartman holds his own through the whole record, you know, and those records, man, they were great records, man. You know, from that.
Okay, so here's a little story about Dan Hartman. Edgar Winter Band. Dan Hartman was the singer.
Mm-hmm.
So when Dan went on to do his solo career, he played all those instruments on his album in the studio,
Okay.
in his garage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like Relight My Fire. He did all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, of course, the mixers like John Luongo and them did those
Yeah.
long extended versions and did
Mm-hmm.
what they did. But the bones
I know.
of what was written, as you said, unprecedented, one of the best of its era,
Yeah.
if not the best.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing is that like for instance, when we was coming up and we was doing our dance music, right? All we was trying to do was emulate Philadelphia International's records. We was trying to sound like them. We was trying to make records that sounded like Philadelphia International records. Like the stuff that was coming out of there. But we didn't have at the time. We didn't have the technology to make it sound like that. But we tried anyway. With the drum machines that we had and so on and so on. And but we know that we had to write good songs over these tracks. We didn't just write, like do a chant over a track or whatever. Like for instance, right? Um, I thought that when I first heard Marshall Jefferson's house music anthem, I thought it was brilliant. And then, after I got to meet Marshall, he told me how he did it, and told me how he had to slow everything down and do it at a certain tempo. Then he speed it up and so on, so on, so on. I was like, okay, that's genius how you did that, Marshall, and so on and so on. So, like all of these genres have good and bad, have great things about it, and then some. And then you got a whole bunch of bad, because you got the people that were good at it, that created it, and then you got all the people that's trying to, follow them. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, exactly. And you know what? It is what it is. You know, you can't stop progress. You can't promote mediocrity the way it's being promoted, because mediocrity seems to be the way now.
Yeah.
Excellence is
Yes.
no longer part of what we strive for. Not as
Well, it's not
a
what they strive for,
situation
but it's
now.
what
It's
I
just.
strive. Anytime I do a record, anytime I do a song.
But you're also okay. But you're also from the same era as I am, in the
Mm-hmm.
sense of, in order to stand out, you got to put your best foot forward.
That's right.
It's not like that now. Now
I
it's
know.
about, I got to get 12, 15, 20, 200 records out in 2 months.
Yep.
Records shelf life,
Yep.
3 days, 2 weeks,
Yep.
4 weeks, 8 weeks, max 10
Yep.
weeks. Boom.
Well, now.
It took 10 weeks to make the record properly, right?
Yep.
Sign it, promote it,
Mm-hmm.
months.
Yep.
Not the way it is now.
It's a microwave society now. Everything's about. Let's get on TikTok. Let's get views. Let's do this. It's a microwave society. It's not.
So what do you tell all your comrades around you? You say to us, give up,
No.
or do you fight? What do you do?
No. Well, it's like this. A lot of my my contemporaries, they're a lot of them are not relevant anymore because they don't listen to. They're stuck in a time warp as far as the way you make music or the type of songs you do. They're stuck in the past, and you know, if you want to make songs for today's people, you got to elevate to what they're listening to, what they like. You got to know what's going on. And one of the good things about me doing publishing, I get to listen to a lot of different genres and a lot of different songs. Like this coming spring, I'm going to be a music supervisor on a TV show. So I'm going to be responsible for doing all the music for this TV series.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But the series is set from 1969 to 1971. So I got to do music of that era. I got licensed some songs, and some songs I'm redoing over again for this TV show. So it's like you gotta find a way of staying current, and it's hard because sometimes you feel like you're dumbing yourself down to stay current. But you sometimes you what you gotta do is you gotta find how you can be creative in this era, how you can put your mark on something to make it sound so that it's not dumbed down or don't sound like everybody else's, but you still are current.
And that's it, my people. Learn from what he just said. Find your niche
Mm-hmm.
that keeps you current. And that's the way it is.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to change everything around you, but keep grinding.
Yeah.
And that's why what makes people like Shedrick Guy a true legend in the game, and still today making those records. And now he's telling us he's a music supervisor. Congratulations on that as
Thank
well.
you.
Stay with it, brother. Don't stop. Stay with it. Catch his interview and others right here on TrueHouseStories.com. Each and every week we come up with amazing stories from people who were there and did it right. Shedrick, thank you again, my man. Don't
Thank
leave
you.
us. And everyone, you'll catch us next time with another great legend. But for now, Shedrick Guy is the guy. Watch his music. Keep an eye on him. He is there and he's not going anywhere.